Welcome back, Virgo, to your channel. Let me ask you something before we begin. And I want you to sit with this question rather than answering it immediately, because the answer that comes after a pause is almost always more honest than the one that comes instantly. When was the last time you truly rested? Not sleep, not the collapse of exhaustion at the end of a day that asked too much of you. Real rest, the kind that lives in the body like warmth, the kind that comes when you are not behind on anything, not bracing for anything, not managing the low grade anxiety of a life that feels perpetually like it is running slightly ahead of you, just out of reach, demanding that you keep pace or fall behind. Uh, for some of you, that question landed somewhere tender because real rest, genuine ease, the particular quality of life that does not require you to be in a constant state of effort and maintenance and performance, has perhaps felt like something that exists for other people, something you have observed from a distance, something you have told yourself you will have eventually when the conditions are right, when you have worked enough, sacrificed enough, earned enough of it to finally allow yourself to stop. What if the energy circulating through your life right now is suggesting that eventually has arrived? What if March of this year carries within it the energetic architecture of a shift so fundamental that the version of you who emerges from it simply does not relate to the old rhythms in the same way anymore? Not because you became lazy, not because you gave up, but because something in the invisible structure of your life is reorganizing itself around a different principle entirely. A principle that has nothing to do with hustle and everything to do with alignment. A principle that the softest, most expansive version of your future has been quietly waiting for you to discover. This is what the energy wants to speak to today. So come in close and listen carefully. The first thing that becomes visible when we enter the energetic atmosphere of this particular moment in your life is the presence of something that can only be described as a clearing. Not an ending in the devastating sense, though for some of you there may have been endings recently that felt devastating at the time, but a clearing in the way that a forest clearing feels when you have been walking through dense trees for a long time and suddenly the canopy opens and the light comes through and you realize you can see the sky again. That quality of sudden, almost disorienting spaciousness, that sense of having emerged from something without entirely knowing when or how the transition happened. There is space around you right now that was not there before. Space in your schedule, perhaps. Space in your emotional life. Space in the way you are beginning to think about what you want and what you are willing to continue tolerating, and what quietly and without drama you have simply stopped accepting as the inevitable condition of your existence. This clearing is not accidental. It has been created in part by everything you have released in recent months, whether consciously or not. Situations that no longer served you, dynamics that cost more than they returned, a version of yourself that worked incredibly hard to meet a standard that, upon honest examination, was never entirely yours to begin with. The energy of that releasing is still present in your field, but it has shifted from loss into something that more closely resembles liberation. The grief of letting go, if you experienced it, is beginning to metabolize into something lighter, something that feels, on certain mornings, surprisingly close to relief. The atmosphere around you in this window of time carries the unmistakable signature of a life that is restructuring itself from the inside out. And the direction of that restructuring is toward ease, toward sufficiency, toward a relationship with your own time and energy that is fundamentally different from the one you have known. Now, let us go beneath the surface, because the subconscious currents running through your life right now are extraordinarily revealing, and they point to something that the surface narrative of your situation may not yet fully reflect. There is a deeply rooted belief living in the subconscious architecture of many people who are drawn to a reading like this one. A belief that was installed early, reinforced consistently, and has been operating as background programming for most of your adult life without you ever quite examining its source or questioning its validity. The belief sounds something like this: that ease must be earned, that rest is a reward for sufficient effort, that abundance, in whatever form it takes, whether financial, emotional, relational, or simply the abundance of time and freedom, is something that arrives after struggle, not before it, not without it. That the soft life, the genuinely comfortable, genuinely spacious, genuinely nourishing life, is something you work toward, something you arrive at eventually, something that requires you to first demonstrate that you have paid the appropriate price. This belief has likely served you in some ways. It has probably made you disciplined, resilient, capable of pushing through difficulty in ways that many people cannot. It has given you a work ethic that other people notice, and it has produced results in your life that you can legitimately be proud of. But it has also, and this is what the subconscious energy is now beginning to surface, cost you something. It has cost you the ability to receive, to allow, to be in a moment of genuine goodness without immediately looking for the catch, without bracing for the correction, without a quiet interior voice asking what you are going to have to pay for this later. It has made abundance feel unsafe in a way you may never have consciously articulated, because abundance without struggle feels, to a nervous system conditioned by this belief, like a trap, like something that cannot be trusted, like ground that is too soft to stand on securely. The energetic shift of this period is, at its deepest level, an invitation to examine that belief and to begin carefully and in your own time to loosen your grip on it. Because the new chapter that is opening around you does not require you to struggle your way into it. It requires something more unfamiliar and, for some of you, more genuinely challenging than struggle. It requires you to receive. Um, as we move into the emotional and psychological landscape of what is unfolding in your life right now, something remarkable becomes visible. There is a version of you that exists just slightly ahead of where you currently stand. Not a fantasy version, not an idealized projection, but a genuinely attainable, energetically coherent version of you who exists in a fundamentally different relationship with your own daily life. A version of you who wakes up without the immediate weight of obligation pressing down before your eyes are fully open, who moves through the hours of the day with a quality of presence rather than a quality of management, who has access to their own creativity, their own joy, their own spontaneity in a way that the perpetually exhausted, perpetually behind, perpetually pushing version simply does not. This version of you is not lazy. That needs to be said clearly and directly, because there is a part of you shaped by the conditioning we just explored that will immediately reach for that word when confronted with the possibility of a softer, easier life. The soft life is not the absence of purpose. It is not the abandonment of ambition. It is not choosing smallness or mediocrity or the comfortable numbness of doing nothing. The soft life, as the energy around you is reflecting it in this period, is the life that is built in alignment with your actual nature rather than in opposition to it. It is the life that flows from your genuine strengths rather than being powered by your fear of what happens if you stop. It is the life in which the effort you do expend is meaningful rather than compulsive, intentional rather than anxious, directed toward things that genuinely matter to you rather than toward the maintenance of a pace that someone else set and you adopted without question. There is a difference between working hard because you love what you are building and working hard because you are afraid of what it means to stop. The energy of this period is asking you to get very honest about which one has been driving you. And for many of you who are drawn to this reading, the honest answer, the one that lives below the story you tell about passion and purpose and drive, is that fear has been doing more of the driving than you have wanted to admit. March carries within its energetic field an opportunity to change the driver. Now let us talk about what is actually shifting in the practical, material, and circumstantial landscape of your life, because the energy here is not only philosophical, it is not only an invitation to inner work. There are genuine external dynamics in motion that are worth paying attention to. There is movement in the area of resources. And I want to be careful about how I speak to this because the energy does not deal in guarantees, and this reading will not pretend otherwise. But what is circulating in the material layer of your life right now has a quality of potential that is unusual in its breadth. Doors that appeared closed are developing in the energetic sense, the quality of things that might open. Opportunities that seemed dormant are showing signs of the particular life that precedes visible activity, the way ground warms in early spring before anything has yet broken the surface. There is something moving toward you in the realm of financial energy that does not require you to exhaust yourself to receive it. This is perhaps the most genuinely difficult aspect of this reading to absorb because it contradicts the equation your subconscious has been running for most of your life, the one that insists that financial security and personal freedom exist on opposite ends of a trade off, that you can have one or the other, but that having both simultaneously requires a period of superhuman effort that most people simply cannot sustain. What the energy of this period is reflecting is a potential reorganization of that equation, a possible convergence of circumstances, inner shifts, outer opportunities, and the cumulative result of choices you may have made months or even years ago that is beginning to suggest a different kind of math, one in which your time and your income are not in the adversarial relationship you have known them to be. One in which the life that nourishes you and the life that sustains you financially are not two separate lives requiring two separate versions of you to maintain them, but one integrated, coherent, genuinely livable life. For some of you, this shift is already partially visible. You may have already noticed that something in your professional landscape has changed or is changing in ways that feel unexpectedly freeing. a transition, a conclusion, a new arrangement, a different way of working that is asking less of your body and less of your soul, while perhaps returning more than the previous arrangement ever did. For others, the shift is still mostly energetic, still mostly subterranean, still in the process of becoming visible in the material world, but it is there. The energy is consistent and clear on this point. Something is moving in the direction of a life that costs you less of yourself. Uh, there is also a deeply personal layer to the soft life that the energy wants to address because abundance is not only financial. And a reading that spoke only to the material dimension of what is unfolding would be leaving the most important part untouched. The soft life, as your soul actually craves it, as it exists in the part of you that knows what it needs, even when the conditioned mind insists on more complicated arrangements, includes an abundance of time, time that belongs to you entirely, time that is not owed to anyone, not already allocated before it has even arrived, not experienced as a resource that is perpetually running out. Time that you can spend being present in your own life, in your own body, in your own relationships, in the things that make you feel most fully like yourself. It includes an abundance of ease in your relationships, the particular quality of connection that does not require you to perform or manage or maintain yourself at a level of vigilance that leaves you depleted, connection that feeds rather than drains, presence that restores rather than demands. It includes an abundance of sensory pleasure, the small, daily, ordinary luxuries that the hustle conditioned mind dismisses as indulgent, good food eaten without guilt and without rushing. Sleep that is genuinely restorative because the morning does not hold terror. The ability to spend an afternoon doing something beautiful simply because it is beautiful, without needing to justify it in terms of productivity or outcome. These are not small things. These are, in fact, the texture of a life that is actually being lived rather than simply managed. And the energy around you in this window of time is suggesting that your access to this texture is increasing, that the barriers between you and this quality of daily life are thinning, that the version of your existence in which these things are ordinary rather than exceptional is closer than the protective, self limiting part of your mind has been willing to believe. What is required of you is not more effort. What is required of you is a willingness to reorient, to let your inner compass recalibrate from striving toward receiving, to practice in whatever small ways are available to you right now the art of allowing things to be good without immediately dismantling the goodness with suspicion or guilt or the restless feeling that you should be doing something more. The energy of March is asking you to practice being someone whose life is good, not because you have finally earned it, but because you always deserved it and you are finally beginning to let yourself have it. There is a symbolic image that keeps returning in the energetic field of this reading. It is the image of someone setting down a very heavy bag, not dramatically, not with ceremony, but simply, quietly, with the particular weariness of someone who has been carrying something for so long that they had forgotten there was any other way to move through the world. And the moment the bag is set down, the immediate sensation is not triumph, it is disorientation. The body does not know, at first, how to walk without the weight it has organized itself around for so long. But then, slowly, something else arrives, a lightness that is almost strange in its unfamiliarity, a sense of the body remembering a different way of moving, a quality of ease that was always available, that was never actually dependent on the bag, that was simply waiting beneath the weight for you to discover that you had the option to put it down. That is the energetic invitation of this moment in your life, to set down the bag, to discover what your body remembers when the weight is lifted, to find out, perhaps for the first time in a long time, what you are like when you are not carrying everything. You are moving into a new season, not just of the calendar, but of your life. And the word for this season is not struggle, it is not sacrifice, it is not the familiar, exhausting, deeply conditioned language of earning and deserving and proving. The word is ease. The word is sufficiency. The word is soft. Welcome to the life your soul has been quietly, persistently, lovingly building toward. You have arrived. And this time, you are allowed to stay.